Revolution 17. This evening, when the air sings like blood and tears the sheet, she sits bold on the horizon. We look straight into your heart. The wind is weak and changeable. She cuts out horses and ladies. This evening, when stones split and she dresses the hair around her like ropes, we see you stand. You can change into a wall of water. It's the final hours that suck her into destruction, but you radiate light at the core. She gives her man a hard time, casts off, crosses over, voyages to a better life. She will sing no more, reads your shadow on the wall enclosing her. She can ball up, it keeps her warm. So this evening, when she swims over in the dark, like a chick unable to find its egg, no man will guard this girl. Why would one search? She will lash herself about you like soft rope. She will embrace you like thread. And so the young, the nest, and all the shingle in between sits like a tiny feather in her that might grow something into wings. I have no prop beneath your language, and I don't know where the ship will strand, whether the river runs inwards. But what floats best falls hard. None of this is necessary. We have a gap to fill in each other.
Very good, Liz. Thank you so much for this poem. I'd like to ask you about your poetry book, which is devoted to someone who is in exile. And this someone is not connected to the world and feel a lot of loneliness. It is hard to be in an island, has no contacts, no friends, no relationships, and feel sad and alone. Why do you think about it?
Well, I guess you're talking about my book, Het Eiland M, The Isle of M, and it's it's a book I made with a series of lino cuts and wood cuts, and it's a poem with images about someone on a distant shore, on a distant island, and the idea is that every man is an island and that we're all floating on the same sea, but that it's very difficult to get to really connect to someone, that it's something that usually happens for an instant or some minutes, or and that we're in the end we're all alone. So the person the poem is about is on his island and trying to reach the world with this poem. So it's like some kind of call from a faraway world or something. Well, people get on, they do things together, they work together, they live together, but in the end you're all individuals trying to do the things that are best for you as an individual. I am, but that's also because I'm a poet, and poets are, thinkers, do have to think about the world and themselves in the world. So, but I think it's in all of us. As I said, it's something. It makes no difference whether you're poor or rich or whether you have a lot of family or not. It's just part of how we are as humans.
Do you travel a lot?
Kind of. Not. Well, let's say I like traveling, but it's not that I'm constantly on the way to some other country or something. It was a poetry festival actually, and it was in 2012 that I went there. And I was there in a group of poets, some Asian poets, also some European poets, someone from Turkey, a biology, and scientists from France, a Dutch poet, and then there was also Bas Kwakman, who is the director of Poetry International, and he lives in Rotterdam, and well, at a certain point, we saw that we were making sketches about the landscape and about the people, and we were writing down some things because the country was very different to us. And then we sat together and we thought about, well, what would it be to make a book about this special country, and that is a Stem van Paardenhaar.
Yes, this. And what did you discover in Mongolia? What
Well, in fact,
something special?
it's so different. It's almost the contrary from Europe. It's like open spaces, very rough country, very wild. People also live in a nomadic way, which is very interesting to me because here people are very fixed to the place they are born, and they try to live in the neighborhood and not to move too much. And that's totally different in Mongolia. And in a way, it was also a very anarchistic country for me, because people have all these influences from Russia, from the Buddhist countries, and they do their own thing with it. It's like they have a very special faith and a very special way to think about nature, to think about their lives as well, and that was very inspiring. It's like I had the idea that there was a very strong freedom in a way, although people were poor. That there was something in which they couldn't be touched, some freedom from the mind and from the heart that was very strong in Mongolia. So it's more about that.
So you found more freedom in Mongolia than in Belgium?
Yeah, obviously, because there I was a tourist or a writer, and here in Belgium I have to work and make my living. So that's that difference. There's also like, but yeah, I think we live in these. In some of my poems I call it we live in cardboard boxes. We live in all those buildings together very close to each other, and that's very different in Mongolia. And sometimes I do long for that, but then I also know it's actually impossible because it's the way this world is, that everyone is living in Europe and in the cities.
Ventling, it's about evolution and revolution in one glass.
In one class. Actually, Venteling, when you translate, we had some difficulties when we tried to translate the poems, because when you translate the title, it's revolution, but in the Dutch word, it's not as much a revolution like you would think. It's also evolution, like you have to. And actually, all poems are like a circle. One is living in, and then the person the poems are about just is always in the same circle, and then in a way there is some evolution in the book, like it's growing into some more free creature, a more adult creature. And in the last poem you can see that very clearly, because it's back to the start, and also making a new start as well. So it's about, you could say that Wenteling is about the prison we make ourselves, the circle we're all imprisoned in or something, and that prison doesn't have anything to do with a real prison, but it's the prison that is in our minds, the default in our thinking or something. Yeah.
Okay, in our consciousness.
Yeah.
This book is about a very small person, yes?
Small, he or she is small compared to the world. Yeah. It's like as if the person the book is about is like overwhelmed by all the things he or she sees and feels, and it's more about that. And it's also about the subconsciousness that is very strong and a very big part of us, but it's we can't force it, we can't regulate it. It's stronger than we are, but yet it decides so much. Being powerful, we all think it has to do with doing great deeds, and I think being powerful has to do with taking power over yourself and making those small decisions in your way of living, in your way of thinking, that in the end will influence the way the world goes. But it's a very slow process. It's not about revolution in the anarchistic way, like changing your country and changing the regime. It's about being who you want to be and being strong in it. I think that most people live in a way that decisions are made for them, and that's also something I'm worried about. I mean, people should be more aware of that they are capable of making their lives, of being who they want to be. And while we are like sometimes I feel like European, well, everywhere in the world, a lot of people are like sheeps, like they do what they are told, and we have to do what we think is good, and that's important.
Your book had book Hauser.
Yeah, it's actually it's based on the story of Kaspar Hauser, a boy of which we just know that he has been imprisoned in a house until he was like 60 years old or something. Then he came out and he couldn't say a word, and he came out in Nuremberg in Germany, and people were wondering who he was, and then they thought he could be like the heir of the French throne. But then, the mystery of Hauser is that we don't know who he was, but that also he needed language to express himself, and by the way he learned language, he couldn't, he didn't have the memories anymore, so it was a very strange story, and we used that story as the basis of book Hauser, and we also created our character that went into the world without language, and then the overwhelming world, and he tries to understand it. And in the story you can see that language is an important tool to understand the world, but also to be to have power in the world. And that's a bit like the starting basis of this book Hauser.
Brak de Waterdrager.
Yeah, your Dutch is definitely improving. Can you read a poem from it?
Next one, Doorbraak. Yes, it's the shortest, I think. Waar mensen wankelen, komen woorden het meest van pas. This book is about someone who lost everything. Yes?
That's about loss.
It's about loss.
Well, yeah, in the book it actually doesn't matter what the character loses. It's just about the loss in general. Like the feeling, you have to struggle with it, and then you have to face it, and then in the end you have to see there's also the possibility of a new start. So that's a bit like the Brak de Waterdrager. First you have the cycle Doorbraak, and that's about the battle, the struggling part. You see the battle between people or between forces, and then you have Maalstroom, which is a very long poem in which the character faces his loss, and then in the end you have a Landschaplief, which is symbolical for the new start, for the landscape that is open and the way that is going to somewhere else.
So life does not finish when you lose something, but it's a start to find something new.
Yeah, it teaches us something. When you lose something, it's a lesson,
Lessons. Oh.
It's a life lesson in a way. Yeah.
What did you learn from losing?
I think I did learn what my strongnesses and my weaknesses are. That I'm actually a very strong person, because like there are people who lose something or someone who don't recover, and I'm sometimes in a way I'm vulnerable. In the poems I am, because it's important for a poet to be so, but I'm also strong and capable of coping with things and of recovering, and that's important, I guess. And I also learned how to cherish myself and well, the small things, you know. Waterdicht is a book I made together with Peter Tunik, and it's actually about hunting for whales. And it's an illustrated poem he made, and I made the illustrations, he did the text. And for me, it's also about how we as humans are very small compared to nature, and how we sometimes think we are more important or more powerful, and that we can change the world in the way we want it. But that in the end, nature is more powerful than we are, and we have to take care. So we have to save the world and do it. Well, it's something we can do by ourselves in a way, but it's also about how the world thinks about ecology. That's not always how we think about ecology.
Your book Zand op een zeebed, your latest book. Would you tell me about this book? It's not a usual book for you. It's an unusual book.
Well, for me it's a usual book, but for most poets it isn't.
Yes.
No, it's very special.
Yes, it's very special because it's a combination of graphics and poems.
Yeah, as you can see, we have it's it's a combination of several small graphic poems, and then there's a poem which is based on the poetry of Paul van Ostaaien, which connects them all. And there's a lot of drawings in the book, and well connected with text, and I've tried to make like some kind of dream world. As you can see in the first image, there's a person lying on the ground dreaming, and then he starts his dream, and the dream is built from the different poems, and it makes those kind of shifts you have when you're dreaming, that you think you're about something, and then your mind goes to something else, and then you remember something from the last dream, and it's like phased. And also in the end, you see, in the beginning the language is kind of understandable, kind of programmatic, but then in the end the language loses its meaning, kind of. It's like as if you're going a level deeper into the subconsciousness, and you're beyond understanding or something. And you can see that in the images, but in the language as well. So for me it's a very special book, but because it's something very personal in a way, because it's something only I could have done, because it's very typically Lies Van Gasse.
Okay. But it's not so many words here.
Not so many, but there are, and the words are important. You have to make the connection from one poem to the other to understand the book. I think that as a poet you have the luxury that in other media people use words just in their way. We use them as a tool, like to use meaning and for their significance. But as a poet you can use words for their meaning, but also for their sound or the images they create. And in that way you can use a lot of different. It's like a material. It's like as if you are painting. You use the colors and the material and the canvas. And as a poet you have a more complete way of using the language than as a journalist or something. That is what I think.
And what is your message? What would you like to say to people?
Well, because you have more possibilities, the message is also more complicated. And I think the main thing I want to say is that it's like a search. You have to look at the world in a more complex way than we tend to do. we tend to think that the journalist says something and yes, okay, that's just a fact. But what I think is that poetry is a way of showing people that that the world is so complex and so special, and well, that is important to me. Do you know the I Ching? It's Chinese, and it's a way of how do you say? It's a kind of prophecy. You throw the coins, and then you get a prophecy about your life. You have to think about the question. You throw the coins, and then you get like this small piece of poetry which tells you what's your life going to be. And I think it's very interesting because that's also the way poetry is. It tells a lot about, well, whoever you are, where you're going to go to, what you have to do in your life, but it's not one-dimensional. I mean, it also the reader is very important. He has to make a text, and that's also what's in the I Ching. You can have these sentences and don't understand it, but you have to be prepared to think about it and to make your meaning.
Thank you so much for this.
Great.
It was very interesting.
Wenteling 17. Deze avond, wanneer de lucht zinkt als bloed en het laken scheurt, zit zij kaal op de einder. We kunnen recht in haar hart kijken. De wind is zwak en veranderlijk. Ze knipt paarden en dames. Deze avond, wanneer stenen splijten en zij het haar als touwen rond zich draagt, zien wij u staan. U kan in een muur van water veranderen. Het zijn de laatste uren die haar in de vernieling zuigen, maar u schijnt licht in het middelpunt. Ze zet haar mannen op het vel, gooit trossen los, steekt over, bewaart een beter leven. Ze zal niet meer zingen. Leest uw schaduw op de wand die haar omsluit. Ze kan ballen. Het houdt haar warm. Dus deze avond, wanneer zij in het donker overzwemt, als een kuiken dat zijn ei niet vindt, bergt geen man zijn meisje. Waarom zal men zoeken? Ze zal zich om u heen slaan als zacht touw. Ze zal u omhelzen als draad. En zo, het jong, het nest en al het grind daartussen zit als een kleine veer in haar die soms tot vleugels groeit. Ik heb geen stok onder uw taal. En ik weet niet waar het schip zal stranden, of de rivier zich inwaarts strekt. Maar wat het mooiste zweeft, valt hard. Niets hiervan is noodzakelijk. Wij hebben een wak te vullen in elkaar.